Hello, everyone. We are back for our next read aloud lesson for our biography unit, and today we're going to be reading Rachel Carson in her book that changed the world. It's by Lawler, and it's illustrated by Lori Bangezer. Um, if you have never heard about Rachel Carson before, she's an incredibly important person in history, especially for just helping our environment and helping our earth. So, in celebration of the 50th anniversary of the publication of Silent Spring, here's a biography of the pioneering environmentalist. And so, she wrote this very, very incredibly famous book called Silent Spring. Um, and just it really talks about the importance of trying to help our earth. But as we're reading this book today, we're going to be focusing on these two goals and skills. Remember, for reading, and for this biography unit, we always have two goals. We have a reading goal and a social studies goal. But read the reading goal with me, and I can determine. Ready? I can determine or figure out the main idea of a text and key details for support. So we know that determine means figure out. We know that the main idea is like a one sentence big idea. And then we know that the key details are like the most important facts. And for the really pretty much throughout this whole unit, we've been putting together these main idea and key details. We've done some summarizing, but we've been doing some other different kinds of things too, a lot of note taking. And that's going to be something similar we're going to be doing today, where we really are going to be trying to figure out like the big key details, which really are also the big main ideas about Rachel Carson. We're going to be using this then to help with our social studies goal. Read with me and I can explain. Ready? I can explain how specific or certain people have done important actions or things to help change the world around them in history, those past events. Make sure I'm not going to lose the book here. Great. Now I'm going to pull up our organizer today. So you're going to see open this in Notability, Biography, Bubble Map. So something very different than normal than we have been doing. I'm going to get this open in Notability, and I'll explain how this is going to work. So make sure to hit Create New Note when this pops up. Top right corner, hit Import. Up on the top, I'm going to make sure to write my name. Okay. So in the middle, you're going to be putting the name of the person of your book. Then in the bubbles around it, you're going to be putting short little phrases, not long, but basically like the big main things that your person did. This is very similar to what we did for our timeline flow map, but this is just another way to organize it. And it doesn't have to go in any order, and this can be the whole person's life. It might be just a different way to kind of look at it, but we're going to be putting those biggest main accomplishments, biggest things about this person, and put it around that middle circle. So we're all about Rachel Carson. So get ready to enjoy. Early one morning in May 1922, young Rachel Carson discovered a secret place deep in the woods, fragrant with pine needles. Witchity, witchy, witchity, called a yellowthroat. This type of bird. Rachel followed the chanting wild bird up and down the hills of the Allegheny River, not stopping until she came upon its nest hidden in a bush. Closer, closer she crept. Click. Her camera captured 4 eggs, mottled white and brown, precious as shining fruit. All her life, Rachel Carson was curious and determined. She was born on May 27, 1907, on the outskirts of Springdale, a small town in Pennsylvania. Since her brother and sister were much older, and neighborhood children seldom came to visit, Rachel often went on her own to explore her family's 65 acres of woods, orchards, and fields. Her doting mother also loved nature. She taught Rachel to skywatch on starry nights and how to recognize the haunting melody of a wood thrush. Rachel read constantly and worked hard in school. When she was only 11, her story about a brave pilot won a prize and was published in St. Nicholas magazine for children. She decided to become a writer. Times were tough. Rachel's father struggled to make a living as a traveling salesman. Her fiercely proud mother doubled her number of piano students and sold apples, chickens, even the family china, to help send Rachel to Pennsylvania College for Women, later named Chapman College in Pittsburgh. Academic scholarship in hand, Rachel climbed into a borrowed Model T and said goodbye. College was a new world for shy Rachel. While she enjoyed her writing classes, she felt awkward at parties and dances. When everyone else dressed up to go to a concert at Carnegie Music Hall, Rachel slipped away to study stuffed birds at a nearby natural history museum. Social life did not improve when Rachel's stern-faced mother appeared on campus nearly every weekend to type Rachel's papers. In the summer, when Rachel came home after her first year at college, a putrid smell lingered everywhere. Smoke clouded the sky. Pollution floated on the river. The woods were being cut down for factories and houses. Too many quarreling people crowded her family's cramped house. Her parents, her poverty-stricken brother and his wife and yowling baby, her divorced sister, and two mischievous toddlers. Even with a tent pitched in the front yard, there was scarcely room for everyone. Where could Rachel escape? All this filled her with sadness and worries about the environment and her own future. When she returned to college, a biology class taught by a lively Ms. Mary Scott Skinker changed her life. At a time when few women pursued careers in science, Rachel made up her mind to become a biologist. There was so much she wanted to learn about animals and plants, and that's what a biologist is. Biology is the study of life science of plants and animals. She knew she could find a way to pay for graduate school. Sure enough, she won a full scholarship to Johns Hopkins University. The summer before she started graduate work, 22-year-old Rachel traveled to Woods Hole, Massachusetts, to study at a marine biology lab. When she stood beside the Atlantic Ocean for the first time, she lost her heart to a world of restless water and sky. Surf crashed, seabirds called, a briny smell filled the air. Mysterious creatures scuttled in the tide pools. And what life hid below the ocean waves? She received her master's degree, one of only a handful of women in her class. The Great Depression, a time of massive unemployment, dashed her hope of continuing her studies. No one wanted to hire a woman biologist. So there's that great, we've heard about the Great Depression before in some of our other books. It really made times very, very difficult for many people during this. And then big struggle here. She graduated. She's a scientist now, but nobody wants to hire her. When her father died, 28-year-old Rachel was desperate for money to support her family. Her mother, Aileen's sister, and Aileen meaning sick, and two young nieces lived elbow to elbow in Rachel's Maryland house. Part-time jobs, teaching, and writing newspaper articles barely paid the rent and grocery bills. Rachel reached out to her former teacher. Take the government scientist test, Ms. Skinker suggested. Rachel aced the exam but still had no job offers. She did not give up. She kept knocking on doors and sending letters. One day, the chief of Bureau of Fisheries interviewed Rachel. Sorry, no job, they told her. Maybe she'd be interested in trying to fix dull radio scripts about sea life. Every other writer had tried and failed. I've never seen a word of yours, she later remembered him saying, but I'm going to take a sporting chance. This was Rachel's lucky break. Her scripts were a success. She landed a full-time job as a biologist at the Bureau of Fisheries, one of only 2 professional women on the staff. When she was assigned to write about the sea for a radio broadcast, the material, she said, rather took charge of the situation. Her boss read her lengthy work and handed it back to her with a twinkle in his eye. I don't think it'll do. Better try again. But send this one to the Atlantic, a very famous magazine. She followed his advice. When the magazine printed under sea, Rachel was approached by an editor from a book publisher. Why not write about the sea for ordinary readers? In 1941, she published her first book, Under the Seawind, a naturalist picture of ocean life. Just as Pearl Harbor in Hawaii was bombed, and America began its involvement in World War II. The book, mostly unnoticed, quickly disappeared from bookstore shelves. Rachel did not stop researching and writing about the remarkable connections in the web of life. Once you are aware of the wonder and beauty of Earth, she scribbled in her journal, you will want to learn about it. As a biologist for 15 years, she went places where few women ventured. She did work performed by few women, counting deep sea fish in foggy, dangerous currents south of Nova Scotia, observing reef animals in a special suit with an 84-pound diving helmet off the coast of Florida, tracking alligators atop a rumbling Glades buggy in the swampy Florida Everglades. Meanwhile, she worked on her own writing in the evening or on weekends. She began to notice disturbing trends. What happened to the web of life when more and more garbage was dumped into the ocean? How did rising ocean temperatures affect living creatures? In 1951, she published a bestseller, The Sea Around Us. Later, she quit her job to write full time. During the next 3 years, she researched and wrote The Edge of the Sea. She was so well known that people demanded her autograph in elevators, beauty parlors, taxi cabs, and restaurants, which is crazy because my guess is most of you have never heard of Rachel Carson, but in 1951, actually, I should say that in 1951, but during the next 3 years, she wrote that next book, so it'd be like 1954 to 1955. She was so famous, people would see her in an elevator. And this is not a movie star or a TV celebrity or famous singer or famous athlete. She's writing books, so people don't see her like on TV or in movies or anything, and there are still want those autographs. Incredibly important person. Rachel never married. Not only was she the sole breadwinner, meaning she was making all the money, she was also responsible for the care of many different family members when they were unemployed, means they didn't have jobs, ill, or dying. At age 50, she adopted her niece's 5-year-old son, Roger. Now she faced the challenge of taking care of a wild young boy and finding time to write. As always, the outdoors were her refuge, meaning like her safe place. She bought a few acres of land along her beloved Maine coast and built a summer cottage. A treasure of a place, she called it. By day, she enjoyed wandering with Roger to inspect moss and ferns among the deep, dark trees. At night, during low tide, she took a flashlight and went alone to the rocky shore. She rolled up the legs of her pants and wiggled on her stomach, discovering big scurrying crabs, starfish, and anemones. In 1958, she began a difficult new project. When World War II ended, the chemical industry in the United States had become very powerful. Heavy spraying of chemicals to kill insects was done routinely in parks and nature preserves, even in swimming pools and in crowded city streets. As early as 1945, Rachel had read about studies of declining bird populations across the country. Each year, researchers reported fewer nesting and migrating birds. The more she investigated, the more alarmed she became. Insecticides were deadly to birds, insects, fish, and other animals. What about people? No one had taken a stand against big business, federal agencies that approved chemical use, or universities that performed shoddy research about the effects of chemicals. She knew she was walking into dangerous territory. However, because she had no connection with industry, government, or any university, she felt she could gather facts more freely. People would read what she wrote about and fight to demand clean air and clean water. I'll check the time of this. Sorry, everyone. Be right back. Yeah, we're doing okay. Only Rachel's closest friends knew she was in a race against time. In 1960, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Her book, Silent Spring, was something she believed in so deeply, nothing made me ever consider turning back. She worked for 4 years to complete Silent Spring. Her careful research about insecticides was slow. Her writing and rewriting was even slower. She wanted to create a book that everyone, not just scientists, could understand. In spite of being bedridden with illness and exhaustion, she refused to give up. I could never again listen happily to a thrush song, she explained, if I had not done all I could. In 1962, Silent Spring was published and became a bestseller. The book created a firestorm of criticism from the chemical industry. Congress held hearings. Investigations followed. New laws were written. Rachel did not live to see the many positive environmental changes created by so many ordinary people, inspired by her brave book. On April 14, 1964, just before an early spring sunset filled with birdsong, 56-year-old Rachel died. So, just remember, you are going to be thinking about this bubble map. What would you put in these bubbles around that center circle? What would you want to say about Rachel Carson? What should people remember about her? And you can come back and see my thoughts.